Okay, cool. Want to welcome everyone to the second episode of Wine Piece, the show where I, Justin, the One Piece fan, try to get my anime fan and One Piece skeptic friend Mitch through the entirety of the series through drinking wine or trying new wines. And really, we're talking more about the thematic elements and how the wine ties in. But Mitch is the wine expert and is going to tell us a little bit about the wine in connection to today's episodes.
Alrighty, so thank you, Justin. Let's talk about the wine theme for this week. Today we are having the La Caña Albariño from Rías, Baixas, 2021.
I'm noticing that I, as the wine amateur, am wanting to make some kind of joke about, that is a very nice sounding wine, because I do not know what to say about this. So please tell us a little bit more about this wine.
All right, so we have an Albariño from Rías, Baixas. Let me start by saying it's a white wine. All right?
That part I knew.
So I'm glad you can see that. It's important to note a lot of people will say that they don't drink white wines, they only drink reds. They think that white wines are of inferior quality. That is a lie. That is a myth. That is something that needs to stop. White wines are just as good as red wines. They're delicious. They're made in a different way and they serve well in certain contexts over others. But I love white wines. Okay? So, white wine. Last week we talked about appellation, right? The appellation is where the wine comes from, that labeling based off of that. This is from Rías, Baixas. You're going to see it has an X in there, and that X is pronounced like a sh sound. And that should give you an indication about some stuff, which is that it's in another language. This is from Spain. Rías Baixas is a region in Galicia, which is in the northwest of Spain, right on the border with Portugal. Okay, the culture and the language there is actually really like a mix of Spanish and Portuguese. They have a language called Gallego, which is a mix of Spanish and Portuguese. And wine here can be made from a bunch of different grape varieties. There's 12 that are permitted, but almost all of them are made, like 90% or something are made with a grape called Albariño. And what's interesting to note is that the same grape exists in Spain and in Portugal. It's called the same thing, but in Spain it's Albariño with a B, and in Portugal it's Alvarinho with a V.
Okay.
So small difference. Now, on to why this wine, besides the fact that I love Albariño.
Sure.
This is Nami's wine theme. Okay. And Nami's wine theme is going to be Iberian wines, which is to say wines from Spain and Portugal.
Okay.
At its core, it's just that Nami is a navigator. We learn about Nami in these 3 episodes. She starts her process of joining the team, right? Or joining the crew. And since she's a navigator, I thought Spain and Portugal worked great because they are the sort of great navigating cultures of the wine world. I do think it's important to recognize the consequences of that as well, right? We are looking at colonialism and colonialist atrocities propagated or committed because of that worldwide navigation. Maybe it's also fitting that Nami's a thief in that sense, but just drop that one there. For wine purposes, though, I think it's important to recognize that the wine cultures that created them are navigators, but not just that. The navigation of these countries actually affected their wine production. So Spain brought wine to the Western Hemisphere. Basically, the reason we have grapes in the US and in South America is because of Spain bringing grapes over. And predominantly, they brought over a grape known as Listan Prieto. In the US, it's known as the Mission grape. It's also known as Criolla Chica or País in Latin America. This is used for sacramental wine in Catholic services. Portugal actually has 2 wine styles that were entirely developed or directly tied to navigation. So you have port wine, you may have heard of it before. Sure. It's a sweet dessert wine. The expansion of port wine largely came out because of British navigators that were coming to Portugal. So if you look at like traditional port producers, they'll have English names because of that, or often have English names. And the other one, Madeira. Madeira is a really interesting one. Madeira is a wine that basically they would make it in Portugal, they would put on ships, they would take it. And in that process, it would basically cook. Because I don't know if you know this, it's hot out there. It's hot when you're crossing the ocean, right? So it basically cook and it would change it, and people really liked it. And it was actually like indestructible.
It was an unplanned addition.
Completely accidental. Wine usually goes bad if exposed to air and heat. In this case, it changed the wine in a way that actually made it that then it couldn't like be broken by heat and stuff. You actually can open up. There are people who will open up bottles like 200-year-old bottles of Madeira or older, and they're still good. But that was directly caused because of navigation. In this case, I picked this specific wine today because talking about that navigation theme in Iberia, I feel like Albariño for me as Baixas represents both well. It's a grape that is found in both areas, in a region that is a cultural hybrid of both areas, and also in a region that is on the ocean. So there's actually this wine, the grapes, they look out over the ocean, so they get like ocean breezes. They're very much, wines of the coast. So that's awesome. That's the theme today.
To make a distinction for the fans of One Piece watching this, your decisions on what is representative by the wine is based on where you are in the series. Correct. So anyone who's like knows more about Nami, maybe knows that some of the intentions of some of the other characters throughout the series are based on specific nationalities. Maybe you know something about Nami's upcoming arc, where she's from, what kind of like fruits, vegetables are grown in her area. They may be relevant to Nami as a character. We will address them as they arise. These indications or these choices on your part are from what you've seen so far. So if you're a One Piece fan watching this and you're like, well, just wait until you get episode 50 or 1,000 or whatever, we're going to have more wine for you then. Mitch is going to give us the commentary then. Based off of what we know, Nami is a brilliant navigator, and so we have this awesome wine that matches accordingly.
Now I'm very excited to see what's going on, to see if I'm going to have to change a wine theme.
Or introduce another one.
Or get really creative with the theme that's there.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers. Oh, I'm a fan.
My big themes. First is the big question. What is a pirate? What constitutes a pirate? Is there a pirate personality? And the big one, are pirates inherently bad?
Sure.
Also, something that I mentioned in the last episode as like a thing I was going to keep an eye out for, I am now fully committed to. Okay. And it's the concept of an individual or personal treasure. This
absolutely
concrete thing that is representative or at least tied to the personal ambition of the individual. Okay. So episode 4, start with a Jolly Roger. We get to see a Jolly Roger, and we see Nami, trickster, thief. We learn all of that. We've already seen a bit of that. There's a conversation that starts off between Zoro and Luffy. It introduces this theme of like wandering, being lost, which I think is interesting with the idea of personal ambition or motivation, right? It's that idea that if you have an end goal in mind, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're heading that direction actively or not, but like where you're going. So are you really that lost?
And as long as you're going there, you're doing the right thing. Even if you don't actually get there, the life worth living is you should be making that effort.
Yep. And then we see Luffy be worried for the first time. And it's the straw hat gets knocked off and it's flying, and we see him take something seriously, truly seriously for the first time. He's been serious with, having to win a battle or win a fight or with Kobe, but this is the first time that we see Luffy scared.
Yeah, he's having fun in the face of danger. Except now, not this time.
So then we get to the flashback. My first thing that I saw with the flashback that was kind of interesting is I think it's been very clear so far that characters have their very specific color palettes. Just like characters will have specific silhouettes, they do seem to be color-coded, right? We have green and black for Zoro. We have orange for Nami. We have red and blue for Luffy. But in the flashback, he's not red. Red is Shanks' color. Luffy's in blue. It's fine. Which to me was an interesting one, that then when we go to the present, he's wearing both. So I know Shanks, obviously we know Shanks is an important character. It's basically, right. And we see that, but just a little detail that I thought I'm going to keep in touch with.
So something interesting off of that too is, compared to other anime, clothing changes quite a bit in this series. It's kind of odd but normal. When you watch lots of One Piece, you'll see them change clothes, but you in other series may see somebody wearing the exact same orange jumpsuit as a kid as they do when they're an adult. Even 5-10 years later. So here we see Luffy wearing a t-shirt,
Yep.
and that's a little odd, but I like the color designation.
As somebody who watches a lot of slice of life anime and a lot of shoujo romance anime, I am not a stranger to changing wardrobes, so we're gonna see that. But here, like you're saying, with it being shonen, that's gonna be a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like it's not characters wearing the same school uniform every class period or every episode. It's not wearing the same.
Goku wearing the
superhero.
exact same
Mhm.
thing over the course of 30 years.
You know,
with a change tag or symbol or something like that based off of who he's training.
So then in that flashback, one thing I really liked, it's a little Easter egg, I guess, but Luffy saying my punches are like pistols,
Right.
and that's what he does with the Kumquat pistol.
mm-hmm.
What stands out the most, though, initially, though, is that Shanks doesn't seem to have this overinflated sense of pride.
No, he almost seems like a. I hate to say nobody because he has a pirate crew that seem to respect him, but he seems low key. Like he doesn't seem to be like this grand character, especially one that Luffy would so clearly look up to at this point. Like he's got kind of a laid back personality, but the scope of that is a little nebulous.
And that one, it actually created an interesting callback because in the last 3 episodes, I don't remember which one, I think it was episode 2, we see Luffy having the same sort of laid back sense of not pride, right? Whereas Luffy as a kid is very much like you have to defend your name, you have to defend your honor, all that. We also get a little bit of info about power balance. So Luffy eats the devil fruit, and we learn that it makes you lose your ability to swim, which from a storytelling perspective, I mean, I already knew this, but still, that's a good stake. Those are good stakes for a pirate world. Damn.
Yeah, you get to be overpowered, but also you could die on accident very easily.
Yep. Like, well done. Such a simple way to do it. It's interesting, though, that in this, it's Luffy's recklessness and pride that leads to trouble as well. Like, we already have his recklessness that leads to him eating the devil fruit. Well, actually, in that point, it's pride and, like, anger, resentment. Like, it's just like, I want to get back at you. So he eats the fruit, but then...
well, and also just maybe even a little bit of stupidity. He's just eating whatever is around him, too. Like...
Oh, Luffy. I feel him.
One of the most pivotal choices of his entire life is made thoughtlessly, and if that's not a Luffy piece of characterization, I'm not sure what is.
It's perfect. And then we get into something that I brought up early on, and it's the fact that we actually have people die.
We do. We have the first death, or the first like on-screen obvious death.
Yeah, which is, so we have this whole situation of, you know, the pirates or whatever they are, the other crew that comes in and disrespects Shanks.
They're mountain bandits.
That's what they are.
They're not even pirates. Mountain bandits who are showing off their 8 million berry bounty.
Yeah, they come in and, you know, there's that, again, lovely dramatic irony, because isn't Shanks' bounty even higher at that point?
We don't know anything about that.
Okay, never mind. Yeah. But they come in, and you see what should be a very typical scene of, like, oh, they come in and maybe later on the pirate crew comes back and gets their revenge and beats them up or something. And instead, we have this moment of, you know, a gun getting pulled out and shooting somebody. Not only is it a death in such a goofy looking anime, it's not even like the way you might expect to see a death in an anime where it's this dramatic moment of a big fight. It's literally just a gunshot to somebody's temple.
Yeah, just boom, done.
Yeah.
The character that shoots him is Lucky Roo. I'm not even being caught up with the show. I'm not even sure when I found that out. I might have found it out from reading the manga and like one of the notes from Oda to the readers. But yeah, that's the very first death of the series, and it's very casual.
Yeah. We also see something that is very Luffy, very contemporary Luffy. So again, this flashback's great because it's just giving us every way that like Luffy is trying to be an extension of Shanks. Shanks says that whatever is done to him is fine, but what you do to friends is inexcusable, which is normal. Like that's a common theme, right? But the fact that we've seen it with Luffy and now we have it said explicitly here, we have that tie in, and now at this point for me, I start questioning myself how much of Luffy's personality is modeled after Shanks, right? So we're setting up a precedent, right, where he's not going to let you harm somebody else that he cares about. And I will say that does hold up even within these 3 episodes that we're talking about today. Then we have Shanks losing an arm, right? That's a pretty powerful moment, and they didn't have to kill Shanks to show you that he's willing to take risks to save Luffy or to save his friends. But also, again, back to the goofiness thing, we have now had in the span of a couple of minutes somebody get shot at point blank and somebody lose their arm in a pretty horrible way.
Death and maiming very quickly for this goofy show. Yeah.
But also I love Shanks's glare at the sea monster.
Also a moment that we'll probably come back to multiple times.
The glare.
Yeah, because it's kind of a big moment. You'll have this discussion of what people will themselves to do. Is it just your choice to be Pirate King, or do you actually have to keep living that and willing yourself forward? Do you just want to be the greatest swordsman, or do you have to keep choosing that and willing yourselves forward? And here's a moment where Shanks is choosing to save Luffy, and just that look is showing the sea monster, I'm willing to do a lot more. I just gave an arm, but more can happen. And there's a lot to that particular moment.
It's like this moment of resolve and personal ambition, all just in this one quick little moment. It does get goofy though, because then the sea monster runs away all scared. Yeah. So we do have this tonal shift back. And we have Luffy crying and everything.
For such a early part to the show, it's very impactful to see happy-go-lucky Luffy and who doesn't get bothered by anything. We see him afraid to lose his hat, and then we see him crying over somebody sacrificing an arm for him, and it kind of makes both moments all the more powerful, because you're like, oh, this hat represents this person who very clearly was willing to sacrifice for Luffy's dream.
Also, just something with Shanks that I can imagine this coming back. Not only is he willing to give up his arm for Luffy, and realistically this all happened because Luffy was being an idiot.
Sure. That's going to be the premise of most arcs. This only happened because Luffy was being an idiot.
It's a chain of Luffy moronic events. So one, he gets, thrown into the ocean because he pissed off the bandits. 2, he can't swim because he ate the devil fruit. Right? He just cannot help himself. And still, Shanks thanks him for defending the pirates, even though we know that this matter of pride and honor and name in that sense doesn't really matter to Shanks. It might matter for the crew, and he might care about the crew, but it's just, I don't know. It's that moment of he's trying to convey that Luffy is more important, right? And then we get to that point where he gives him the straw hat, and we have all of the feels and meaning tied to that, right? So I wrote down the exact quote: "Come bring it back to me someday. Once you become a great pirate, that's our promise, Luffy." So this idea that now this hat, on top of the fact that we've seen it on Shanks' head the whole time, is tied to this promise about becoming a pirate. And we know that he wants to be king of the pirates, right? I'm going to get to that in a second. It also turns the hat into a contract.
Yeah.
Foreshadows, right? Is tied into the acceptance of it, is giving it back.
As far as the question of who will come back in the series, now it's pretty integral that Shanks has to show up again at some point, or at least be discussed again at some point.
Yep. The hat also concretizes the connection with Shanks, where Luffy has this daily reminder of Shanks on top of having his color palette shift to red. And then the last one, I like this image, right? That the hat represents that ambition to become king of pirates, but it becomes like a crown stand-in at that point. This is the crown of the king of pirates.
Well, it's a straw hat, and it's something you mentioned before too. It's his treasure. We think of a crown as maybe this golden jeweled object, but that may be treasure to some, but its value is based on the emotions behind the person who has it, or the tie-in or the respect that other people give it specifically. And even though this is a hat made of straw, the emotional tie-in for Luffy is just as powerful. It is a treasure to him.
And I like that idea of creating concrete links to the ambition, right?
Mhm.
So we have this relationship. Item or thing is treasure. Treasure is representation of personal ambition, and we have this overall overlying thing of freedom, right? The reason I like that so much, though, is because with this being an inherently visual medium,
Mhm.
being able to now call back to those things and have this meaning attributed to it, right? That now I know that Zoro's swords mean something. They're tied to his ambition. Luffy's hat means something and it's tied to his ambition. You can now play with that,
Mhm.
right?
There's utility and function, but also like meaning behind it.
Yep. I think it came up in this,
I mean, the swords particularly have utility. The hat's a little bit more complicated,
but like even when it happens, jumping ahead a little bit, but I guess, but like when the hat gets cut, hat gets damaged.
Mhm.
It's not broken,
Mhm.
and it's still fine, and doesn't get repaired. I don't know. Either way,
we might be moving a little bit further ahead.
either way, just that one. That's
Mhm.
something that came up. That whatever. So then that's the end of the flashback.
There's a couple other things that I would like to like mention. It's a little strange, and you stop me if I start giving too much information. But with Shanks being as important as he is, I tend to know more about him and his background, the other characters involved in that scene. You know, you have one character that shoots the mountain bandit. You have another character that's smoking and pulls out his rifle and just starts wailing on the bandits. I know names and functions, so sometimes it's a little bit odd for me to discuss these things, but I think one of the things that literally happens in the episode is when the bandits say, these guys don't fight fair. These guys fight dirty. And the crew member, who shall remain nameless at this time, says, what did you think, we're saints? We're pirates. Like, what were you expecting? And it's kind of, again, that setting an expectation and subverting them. You know, in the first interaction with Shanks's crew and the bandits, you can totally see why the bandits would think that they're all weak pushovers. They go straight to the captain, they bully the captain, they embarrass the captain, and then walk out without consequence. Then all of a sudden, the pirates are like, well, I guess we're ready to fight. And pirates fight to win. There's, you know, there may be some certain amount of honor. They may look out for their friends, but like, once you pull out a weapon, you better be willing to put your life on the line. And so there's a lot of like important callback kind of moments there that you can see all kind of like bleed into the older version of Luffy as we kind of transition back into normal times or current times.
Two of the things you mentioned there are actual callbacks that I put in the next episode. So
Okay,
that
nice.
might be a good transition.
Cool.
There is one last thing that happens in the episode, but it really sets up for the next one, that we get introduced to Buggy the Clown,
Mhm.
Pirate Captain, Devil Fruit User. Done.
Yeah.
But the next episode actually starts with Nami deceiving Luffy
Mhm.
for self-preservation.
Mhm.
So we've seen Nami now multiple times without really speaking to her or seeing her much like in detail. We see her in the background, right? Thief sneaking around, whatever. And now we see her. The first direct action that we have with her engaging with Luffy is something of self-preservation, where she is prioritizing herself.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is, as of this point, that if that's taken out of context, you're like, oh, this character is sly and possibly bad, morally bad.
Sure.
But because of everything we've seen so far, I'm sort of primed to be like, well, she's protecting her own freedom.
Mhm.
So I can't even be too mad at it. We also have Luffy mentioning that his hat is his treasure in this scene. So,
Well, I was gonna say, like, with Nami, because of the, and I think this is what you're saying, because of the complexity of all of the other characters, you know, there are good pirates, or seemingly good pirates, and seemingly bad pirates. There's seemingly good Marines, seemingly bad Marines, and Nami's just robbing from all of them. Her position is more ambiguous at this time.
which, mind you, she says she's a thief that only steals from pirates, but we have seen her steal from the Navy already.
Mhm.
Which is an interesting discussion for later on. Is she making some kind of statement that those Marines were acting like pirates Was she just doing something that she needed so that way she could steal from pirates? You know, if there was like utility behind what the Marines had, and so that she could better steal from pirates. But you're right. If the Marines ideally are representative of the people, she is not stealing from pirates in that situation.
Which goes back to question 1. What is a pirate? What constitutes a pirate? Is there a pirate personality? And are pirates bad?
Sure.
So then we get into Buggy. We have another pirate captain who is
Buggy the Clown.
another pirate captain who is upset when somebody mentions something about their personal look. But like, it's on his Jolly Roger. Why? Don't answer that. Just leave it hanging. I'm just asking myself why. It's literally your branding, but you're sensitive to it, right? Which is funny in itself. Is just hysterical. It's just it doesn't make sense. It's surreal and absurd, and it's fine, right? To be fair, he's a clown character, so yeah.
There's not a lot of free public education in the One Piece world, particularly for pirates. It would be nice.
Yep.
Right.
So this is going to be a little bit out of order. I'm going to actually put it in thematic order, but it happens in different order in the episode.
Okay.
First, I just want to talk about his clown aesthetic. Okay. While that in itself is goofy, obviously, it's also one that's pretty common in anime. So it wasn't a shocking thing. And I'm interested now to see how the clown aesthetic works going forward with Buggy, knowing that other characters from other, anime and manga later on might pull from that, right? So, I mean, you have Kafka, I think Kafka's his name, in Final Fantasy VI.
Ooh,
You have
okay.
Hisoka in Hunter x Hunter, right? You have one of my favorite animes of all time, Cowboy Bebop, has an episode with a like demon clown that floats, Paro.
The assassin kind of clown. Yeah.
So clowns, and plus clowns are just terrifying often in general.
Sure.
So having Buggy be a clown, it actually isn't as goofy as I expected. Do you know what actually seemed really goofy to me about Buggy?
Oh, actually, I have a guess. Do you want me to actually guess?
Guess, and then I'll tell you.
All right, I'm gonna keep it vague because I'm just going to keep it vague. Does it have to do with his hat?
No, it is his gloves.
Oh, okay.
Because they make me think of Mickey Mouse.
Okay,
So,
I can see that. There's something extremely goofy about his hat too. However, I'm not going to say it.
Wasn't it a pirate hat? It has like a pirate on it too.
Yes, it is, but it's worth watching. Maybe we put in a.
All right, I'll check it out after. But
well, I'll say this: like if you just want to like Google something, the tassels. Where do the tassels come from?
I mean, they look like pigtails.
If you look at Buggy's hair color,
It's blue.
it's blue hair.
So when I saw it, I thought they were just tassels. Like they were his hair, pigtails.
He has his hair sticking out through his hat.
Okay, so he does have pigtails.
Yeah.
I love it. Nope, the gloves did it for me. They made me think of Mickey Mouse.
So goofy already. Everything about him is goofy.
I'm down. So we find out about his powers, right? But I will say, is this the first plot hole?
Maybe.
So we learn about his powers. He can detach his limbs and whatever, chop fruit, all of that, right? But the first person we see him attack, it's like he telepathically is choking this person. It's like a force choke. His hands aren't on the person's neck.
There's one shot where you see like fingerprint indentations on the neck, but not the hand.
No hand.
It's, I don't know if it's a plot hole. I think it's meant to be like a cinematic kind of hide. Like, I don't think it's meant to be a hole so much as like, we're not revealing this yet. We're just trying to make this character look scarier.
But it's inconsistent, so I don't like it.
I think that's a fair critique because you absolutely cannot see a hand, but can see that the person is being choked. The idea, if as the One Piece apologist in me comes out, is that they're building to it because the reveal is more impressive later. But I think that's a perfectly reasonable critique.
Which that's what I felt like, because when they reveal his power, it has that surprising element. But then I just go back to that and I'm like, well, but now the power feels weird. This is if I'm not mistaken, this is also the second person that we see with double fruit powers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yep. And again, possibly the second like most ridiculous power. Like, it doesn't necessarily have offensive capabilities like rubber. Like, okay, he can detach. Cool. All of those parts of his body are still parts of the human body.
Yep.
Granted, we see it put to excellent effect against Zoro.
That was great.
Rough.
Yep. No, that one's great. Also, I noticed, just like I did with colors before, his color aesthetic is interesting because he seems to combine all of the colors of the first three crew members.
Okay.
He has an orange hat and orange like coat.
Mm-hmm.
He's got blue and red. He's got the striped shirt, and then he has green pants and a green like belt. So he kind of combines a lot of things.
Okay, interesting.
I looked at it more as his aesthetic is over the top.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a lot going.
Oh gosh, now you got this like interesting thematic thing of like his whole power is not being together while simultaneously being together.
And I mean, he has stripes and stuff too. So there's that. One other thing about Buggy later, I'm going to get back to that. But we're doing character intros, so we have that. We also are told a little bit more about Nami. We're told that she's a navigator. Wine. We're also told that her goal is to earn 100 million berries.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that personal ambition, right? In this case, that would also mean that her treasure is treasure.
It gives us an interesting scale too, since we know that I believe the bandit's name was Haguma, the leader of the mountain bandits. His bounty was 8 million, and he believed that to be an impressive amount. So we know that the leader of a mountain bandit crew gang is 8 million, and Nami is looking for 100 million.
Sure. Yeah. Again, vastness of this world and the size of
The
it.
sense of the scope of the world. Yeah.
Random things. She only likes money and tangerines.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is one of the things that I was saying for like One Piece fans wondering why we went this route for the characterizing or the thing that kind of represents Nami. She likes tangerines, so that may potentially be something we're looking at later. Navigation, I think, is absolutely the key, but then
The tangerines also. All right.
unless you can find a robbery wine, pick one from the store and just take it. Don't do that. That's not legal.
There are orange wines though. They're not made from oranges though, so no. And then side little thing before we move on. Black minstrel character. Damn. Just
Oh, some of the people in the crew of Buggy's crew. Yeah.
Mr. Popo style.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll move on. The first thing
Absolutely fair critique.
The first thing that stands out though after we have those basic character intros is we get introduced to the buggy ball.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what I love about the buggy ball is so far we have had all of these power level things that are within range or within reason. So like even with the sea serpent, whatever, that's terrifying and whatnot, but everything feels like, okay, I understand what is expected of this world. The buggy ball, and I ask you, please go back and rewatch when they shoot the buggy ball.
Mm-hmm.
The animation they have looks like when they do a zoom out of the like Kamehameha like against Cell.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden you're like, oh, we just escalated the power level tremendously, especially of machines and weapons, right? This is not something where we're just going to be punching people. There are now city destroying weapons in episode 4, right?
Well, we have Alvida shooting regular cannons at a ship that's holding up after multiple shots, like the ship-to-ship warfare, and they're both shooting cannons, and it's relatively fine.
And we've seen guns. We saw a gun kill one person, but it was just like a normal one-person point-blank shot. So there's that. From the buggy ball, we get introduced to our first dilemma for Nami, first character moment, right? Where he's going to shoot Luffy.
Luffy, who she now knows is a pirate.
Yep. So we have Nami. She now has her own sense of morality that we know. Pirates are bad, and she is all about self-preservation and saving herself and reaching her 100 million berry goal. We learned that pirates killed someone dear to her, so that's where her pirate hatred comes from. We don't get more information than that. She's willing to get ahead at the expense of others, but she's not willing to let people die needlessly.
Or at least not someone who she's starting to see the value of Luffy. Even though Luffy claims himself to be a pirate, she has seen Luffy do good things. Because I believe we're I guess it's in the previous episode, or maybe I'm losing track of which episode specifically, because she sees Luffy's value. Oh, she sees it more after the fact. Never mind. Please continue. I'm caught up. Yeah.
But that idea that she saves Luffy because she's not willing to let people die.
She's got him roped up, and then she sacrifices him there once she learns that he's a pirate.
Yep.
And what I like is that this offers a little bit more structure to Nami's motivations and whatnot, because we've seen her lie, we've seen her steal from both sides, but she's not truly a chaotic figure. She's not somebody who operates on a dice roll.
She did want to team up with Luffy before she found out he was a pirate too. She thought he was just strong and was like, okay, great, like this works out.
Instead, what happens is she has a very clear and very specific morality that she will follow and examine in the moment what makes sense, right? She's not saving Luffy because of a sudden whim. It's actually already established how she operates. So that was great. I think it's interesting that she fights with a non-bladed weapon. Again, it's a weapon that would be difficult to kill someone with needlessly. Could you kill someone with it?
Of course, like any weapon.
But it's one that lends itself to not maiming or killing.
Disarming or disabling. Yep. You know, you're going to be stunned if you get hit in the shins by a bow staff. Exactly.
And she stopped the fuse at her own expense. She grabs it with her hand and all of that. There's echoes back to Shanks losing his arm, right? But we have this whole moment of development for Nami through this moment of, do I save Luffy? Before she's even a crew member.
Yep.
Right? We've seen Luffy, who also is not a crew member, defend Shanks. And now we have Nami, not a crew member, defend the person that she will identify as her captain eventually, right?
Hopefully.
We then have mention about Luffy's resolve. This is a quote: "The resolve to put your life on the line," which Nami just did. So there's
yeah, you can't face off against pirates. The reason why you're going to have difficulty facing off against pirates isn't your willingness to kill. It's, willingness to put your own life on the line.
And we're still consistent with the moments with Kobe, moments with Zoro. We're still consistent about willing to put your life on the line for your ambition. This does also correlate. So I said I was going to call back to it too. This correlates with Shanks's gun weapon comment, right? That you bring out a gun, you're putting your life on the line, you're willing to do that, and you're putting yours. Yeah, you're putting someone else's life on the line, and you're putting yours up there too. This idea of just very clear resolve.
And I guess it's even earlier that Nami is doing that but doesn't realize it, or that she's making the mistake that she doesn't realize she's making, which is turning Luffy in at the beginning. Because when she brings Luffy to Buggy, she probably thinks of this as being like, okay, they're going to hold on to him, he's going to take the fall, they might beat him up and let him go. But effectively, by doing nothing, she will have been the one to kill Luffy by, taking advantage of this, poor, ignorant child who really has nothing. He's called himself a pirate, but that's about it. And by taking him to Buggy and saying, oh, this person was in charge of me, the person who stole from you, now Luffy is taking the fall. She didn't have that kind of will. She didn't have that kind of determination because she hadn't thought about the seriousness of her actions. You're getting involved with pirates. Pirates do kill. That is part of their thing. Maybe some of the good ones don't try to as often, but even as we see in the flashback, pirates don't fight fair. They don't have to fight fair. They fight for their goals. And Nami didn't realize the scope of that when she initially turned in Luffy, and then realized that shortly thereafter, oh, I am doing more here than maybe I thought I was.
I like that also falls into, it's not in the same way, but not as direct, but it falls into that pattern of Luffy will challenge you on your ambition and on your own goals and morality, right? Not telling you to give up on them, but he will present situations to you that will have you question yourself, right? Does it with Kobe, and also the fact that again, back to the resolve, your resolve has to be rock solid, has to be right, steel clad. But also, you just made me think of something. there's so many times in anime that you see the main character, the leader, whatever, recruit people.
Mm-hmm.
And the situations that have been presented so far, yes, Luffy does recruit people, but it's almost like you have to have a personality type that already gels with the ideology,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you're not being actively recruited. Luffy doesn't make concessions for you.
Mm-hmm.
He presents what's there, and people fall into that, at least to some extent so far. And I think that's an interesting dynamic again because it could lead to a lack of conflict, but if you've done incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
But I know there's going to be conflict, so it opens up to a slightly more interesting conflict because you have this combination of everybody here is free to do what they want, but all of us possibly operate under very similar pretenses or ideas. I don't know. Again, great work with Luffy.
The context matters.
Yeah.
And freedom, the context for freedom is kind of what's important. You know, if you're free and you're on the ocean and you're by yourself and there's no land and there's nothing else to do and there's no food, sure, technically you're free, but there's nothing. It's not freedom to do any one particular thing. The thing that adds complexity to Luffy's pursuit of freedom is the complexity in other characters' lives. Luffy's pursuit of freedom would be boring if he was in this world by himself, because even though he is kind of the avatar of I want to be free, I want to be happy, I want you to be free, I want you to be happy, the value of that is dependent on how complex other characters' situations are, how complicated the story is in the new place that he goes to, because it may be really easy to just punch Axe Hand Morgan, it may be really easy to just punch Alvida, but as the stakes get more complicated, you can't just do that. If there's one captain, sure, one person, Luffy goes one-on-one, maybe he fights, maybe he wins, that might settle it. But as you get to an entire crew of people, as you try to get more people to join your crew, it can't be that simple. It's not going to function that way. So Nami being this character with a complicated moral dilemma of, I have this goal, I need to make this money, I can do it, but now am I the bad person by getting this other person killed based off of my own decision? Am I actually pursuing freedom by going after my goal of getting this money? Or am I still somehow locked into this pirate mentality of kill for my goals, evilness doesn't matter, do whatever it takes to get to my end goal? If I'm locked in there, then I'm not really free either. And Luffy's discussion of like, if you're not committed, it's not going to work, makes Nami reevaluate whether or not she's even committed to the things she wants to be committed to.
I'm really curious now to see if okay, I'm going to phrase it this way. So there's a moment, an anime moment from my childhood that scarred me like forever.
Sure there were many.
Right? And it was in the original Pokemon.
Okay.
When Ash decides that the best thing for Pikachu would be to go live for the other Pikachus. And he abandons Pikachu. And Pikachu comes back. Absolute tears. I could get emotional thinking about it.
See, I was with you on Pokemon and you saying like the abandonment. I gotta go letting go of Butterfree.
The Butterfree one,
Like,
though, that
that's-
was like Butterfree, you go live your own life, you found a woman, like, go for it. That's fine. The Pikachu one,
He
There was
raised
nothing.
that Butterfree from a Caterpie though. That was his first catch, his first evolution. Like,
but his first Pokemon was Pikachu. So with that Pikachu one,
but I never thought Pikachu was gonna actually leave.
but that's where I'm going
Did
to.
you-
Did you think that Pikachu was gonna leave in that moment?
I
Did
was
you
8
buy
years
into that?
old,
Yeah.
and I was convinced that something terrible was about to happen.
That's fair.
But I guess the issue now is I'm looking at it as with One Piece, right? Do you have these characters that with their individual motivations are going to be tempted to go do something that maybe is more conducive to their individual moment and or their individual experience, and is Luffy going to be somebody who's going to push them to do it, and does that cause conflict, right? Does it cause a situation where now the person has to adjust because they realize that their priorities have shifted? Or why not? Just throwing that out there. Did I make the connection with Pokemon? Sure, but
No, that's a great question, and I think for people getting into One Piece that don't go online to like read ahead, don't read like the One Piece wiki, that don't go into like the I don't know the manga Reddit, or don't go into the channel, that are like looking just kind of take it as it is. One of the most enjoyable pieces of like theorizing for this kind of series is who's going to join the crew. We meet so many characters. We meet Kobe. Kobe and Luffy get along so well. So you think after an episode, maybe Kobe's going to be the navigator. Kobe's a great character. We get a lot from them, and then they go their separate ways. And so as the arcs get bigger and bigger and bigger, Luffy's going to meet people that you think, wow, they gel really well. They mix, things work well. Are they going to join? Are they not? Who's going to fit with the crew? There are lots of different people. So chances are, as we like get through this, I will ask you, who do you want to see going forward? Out of this like group of people, who do you think would make for a good crew member? Right now we meet Nami and have a pretty solid sense that she would mix with Luffy and Zoro depending on things going forward. But yes, the question of who's going to join the crew is more and more complicated. I believe in these first few episodes, Luffy even tells Zoro, I'd like to have 10 members of my crew. And so as they meet people, as people join, that question of who is going to join and who isn't actually becomes a little bit more complex, a little less obvious. And so yeah, that's a great question, and it'll be something that's fun to kind of tease out. There'll be some people that you just don't like at all that maybe join the crew and take a couple of 100 episodes before you like them.
I feel like I know what you're talking about. But anyway,
some will just show up and be adorable. But
one other thing too is I'm wondering if Luffy's ever going to recruit somebody who's already a pirate and not somebody who hates pirates. But maybe Luffy's just an evangelist and that's his mission. Anyway, so then last bits of the episode, Zoro's introduced. God, I love Zoro. Like Zoro comes in and you're just like, yes. Like this was already good. Yeah. But now Zoro's here.
He shows up and seems like he's in control of every single situation he's in. When he's not there and then he is there, there's an entire tone shift of like, oh, somebody's in trouble.
On the topic of tone shift, Zoro comes in, Zoro to the rescue, insert Japanese musical cue with flute and drums. So, Japanese nationalist idea, just saying.
Then I mentioned this before. A lot of the characters are meant to be representative of different countries. It'll be something that we probably can see sometimes that works well, sometimes that it doesn't work as well. But yeah, I think Zoro is the more Japanese based character. Luffy, it's more Brazilian. Whether or not you can see it here, it's something that tends to be discussed. I'm trying to think of how to address this in a non-spoilery way. But yes, every one of the crew members is meant to be from a different location.
Got it.
Are they all? No.
Yeah, we can just leave it there. Different nationality, if you will, but we'll discuss and show our work and disagree as we go.
Got it. So then we get to Zoro versus Buggy. They both have very unconventional blade usages, right? We have Zoro obviously carrying in his mouth. What I love about Buggy is he's already weird. You didn't have to make him more weird. You could just have him holding knives. But no. Let's put him in between his fingers.
Yeah.
Just why not?
Completely unuseful. Like, that's not at all productive way to like fight somebody is by putting knives between you don't have a grip on them.
But I'm so here for it.
But yeah, he looks like we all looked pretending to be Wolverine as kids. Like, oh, let me hold these pencils between my fingers like it's actually gonna do something, and it's not.
To be fair, Buggy can separate and get back together, so super
Zoro,
regenerative healing.
Zoro does exactly what we all imagine Zoro to do, and that is whoop ass in a one-on-one straight sword fight. However, we learned this is not a one-on-one straight sword fight.
On to that topic. So you mentioned something about like pirates fight dirty, right? Mm-hmm. But we see Zoro hurt by a dirty tactic. We know he's super strong. Hurt by dirty tactics, that from behind. It does insinuate that he fights clean, and again, it goes back to the Japanese stuff, the Bushido type thing. Like
Luffy even calls him out. That's dirty.
Yep. But again, just Zoro has the protagonist energy, right?
Oh yeah.
He's wounded, should be dead. but he keeps on fighting. And then what does he lift? He like does this huge feat of strength where he just like
he picks up Luffy from his cage.
that's what it is. He lifts up the whole cage. And yeah, I mean, I just again, I'm here for Zoro. That's the end of the episode though, and from there it continues on to episode 6. Anything you want to do before we go there, because you know I'm ready for episode 6.
Right. I think that Zoro has an interesting effect on Nami too, and Zoro does something to the scene besides just be a badass, besides just kind of save the day. He does this thing that we'll see a lot throughout the series of makes everybody go, wait a second, this guy is awesome. He's not the captain? Luffy, the goofy kid that's tied up in a rope that's in that cage right now, he's the captain. Why is this the case?
But already it makes sense to me, because Zoro doesn't seem like he could hold a crew together.
And nor would he have an interest in it.
Yeah, like Zoro is powerful and amazing and everything, but he's not that he's not a leader, but he's not that person to bind together a crew that is so diverse and with different motivations. That's Luffy.
He's decisive and specific and clear, but his goal is... his primary goal is selfish. Like, it's not like to the exclusion of everyone else, but it's just, I want to be the world's greatest swordsman. Exactly. Luffy wants to be the pirate king. King implies that there's going to be others. You can't really be the king of nothing. Yep. And so those two things go together in a way that, like, it's funny because when Zoro shows up and looks like a badass, that gives Luffy a lot more credibility. To all these people that don't know who Luffy is, seeing Zoro look awesome... Yep.
Like, this guy's under you?
Yeah, what must you have done? Because you're a fool.
Yep.
And so as we get to later situations, it's really cool how other characters effectively characterize Luffy, because Luffy has the goofy power. So why should we trust or respect you? Oh, Zoro's here. Well, I love we respect you for showing up, Zoro.
I love the rhyme there. Luffy with the goofy powers.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's by design. There's no way that wasn't by design.
So we get to episode 6. Starts off, Zoro does more feats of strength or whatever, but then we get introduced to the all-star himself, Chou the doggy.
Chou the dog.
Chou the dog. I wrote down dog in all caps. I then wrote down bitey doggy because he bites Luffy. We have Zoro casually sleeping off a life-threatening injury because, as one does.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's going to be this question of like realism and animeisms. I don't know, like, and sometimes One Piece is just like, yeah, we screw you. He's going to sleep. He's going to heal up. Don't worry.
Could not care less. It works with his character. It amplifies Zoro's character. Yep. Zoro is supposed to be the most inhuman human to me, right?
Yeah.
What's more badass than sleeping off a fully penetrative knife wound to the stomach? Like, exactly. No, it's fine. Yeah.
So we get Chou's story, right? It's this emotional side story, very clear Hachiko inspiration. Took a picture of the Hachiko statue when I was in Japan.
Nice.
Oh yeah, it was great. Before I get into specifics of like his whole thing, I just want to say, you know this, but for anybody watching, anybody listening, I love dogs. I have a dog. He's adorable. Justin is my dog's uncle. Just a lot of love for dogs here. So, which also makes this whole thing the most anger-inspiring thing so far. Anyway. So, back to the concept of treasures and ambitions and motivations. We have the shop, the Chou's treasure. His ambition is to protect the shop because the owner asked him to.
Yeah, his owner passed away, and all that he has left is his memories with his owner and their shop.
And the part that kills it, and I guess it's a really good way of introducing this in a way that is low stakes, because it doesn't affect any of our characters yet. We learn when the shop is burned down, the shop is burned down, his treasure is destroyed, his personal ambition is over. And it's one of those obvious, I guess, that like a character's ambition can be over. Something can happen to destroy that, right? But we see it in a microcosm that reminds you very clearly of how direct this can be. right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that if Luffy loses the hat, he can't become king of the pirates, but he can't keep his promise.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Nami, if she keeps on losing her treasure, she's never going to make 100 million berries. Zoro, if he loses his swords, I mean, he can get other swords, but that's still a hit to a swordsman, right? So we see that. And what I like, though, is that the story is used for two things. It's used metatextually in that sense. It's used by us as the viewers to see and understand that treasures can be destroyed, personal ambitions can be gone. But also within the story, it's to convince Nami that Luffy isn't bad.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really important, great way to do it. How many anime have we seen that try to introduce a sob story that does nothing? And here we have one that does multiple things.
Well, and I think it's partly because of Luffy's morality being, he has reason to be upset with Chou. Like, Luffy's locked in a cage. Nami tries to pay Luffy back by giving him the key that she stole so that way Luffy can get out. Chou eats the key. Luffy is stuck in the cage because Chou eats the key. At this point, Luffy has no reason to help Chou. Luffy has no reason to even like Chou. But once he escapes, he kind of realizes, okay, like, Chou has some value. Chou just fought for what he believed in. He fought for his treasure, something that Luffy understands inherently. Like, you don't have to fight just because. You don't have to fight because it's fun. You know, you tie back to the Shanks thing of not fighting just for no reason. You fight to protect your friends and the things that are important to you. Luffy gains a respect for Chou and is like, all right, well, that is important to me, that this dog of all creatures is the thing that, like, agrees with my values, that matches my values. So now that I'm busted out of this cage, even though I have good reason to be upset with this dog, I'm in it. I'm in it. This dog has been fighting, fought against completely unfair odds against a pirate and a giant lion. Well, I need to help that. Somebody that has my values is great. And so going back in and just being like, time to be Luffy, time to show why I'm the captain. It just hits.
Yep, it does. On the topic of the giant lion, that does we are introduced to Beast and Ramoji, and giant lion, crazy outfit, crazy hairstyle, absolute insanity, but in theme. Right?
So it fits with Buggy's crew.
He's a circus act.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I'm watching, it's like, oh, okay. So it's not just Buggy by himself. Like, we are committed to this aesthetic, right? We are a circus on the water. Perfect. I'm here for it. Find out that Luffy's extremely durable. Like, this man just doesn't get hurt.
Yeah. It doesn't happen.
Yep. And here's something interesting too, kind of closing the loop a bit. So we see a new attack. We see the Gum Gum Hammer, right? Love it, right? Wait, is it? I'm trying to make sure I'm not mixing the moves. Is that the one where he like twists
him up, spins him, and slams him down? Oh yeah.
He lost his hat during the move. Didn't even think about it. He just loses his hat, and he was willing to do that to avenge Chou. So dynamic, right? Luffy's thing is he wants to be King of Pirates. Personal ambition is that his treasure is his hat, but his resolve or his own personality can get in the way that he wants to defend someone in the way that Shanks told him, right? That you defend your friends, whatnot. In the way that Shanks lost an arm.
Yeah.
Right? And it's only a brief moment. He can pick up his hat again, but he did lose his hat. So we have Luffy who gets mad when people's personal treasures and ambitions are interfered with. He's consistent in that he does not want to stop helping people, or he does not want to stop people from achieving their ambitions. He wants to let them do that. And he does respect other people's treasures, even if they're not his or whatever. He respects that this is important to someone else and is able to leave it at that.
Yeah, and then he brings back what little was left of the
the pet food.
Like bringing back the small bag of pet food, like that was supposed to break you, just like it did Nami. Nami's like, well, I can't. He can't be that bad, right? Like,
I can't. I could never show this episode to my wife.
I believe it. Or you should only show this episode and preach the good word.
Oh no! This would make her never watch it again.
Okay.
Because it's too tragic. Even though the dog's alive, it's too tragic.
It's a little difficult too, because the dog does take
It's hit.
damage, and it's rough. Dog survives is perfectly fine, but I think anybody that's like particularly upset about animal cruelty and the like, even though like this is meant to be a lighthearted show, there are serious things, and this was a serious event, and so
Well, again, it's 2 episodes where we see some 3 episodes where we see a lot of pretty hurtful and serious acts of violence, right?
Zoro, I mean,
even the dog's owner dying in the past, like yes, it was the past, but like that's more of a discussion of death right there.
But we didn't see it directly.
No, it's true. It's true.
Right? That I can expect that, right? You can, I mean, again, Pokemon tells you somebody died in the past. All right, then we have Nami saying, pirates are all the same, every last one. They take what people hold dear without a second thought. It's not what Luffy's doing.
Yeah, he's complicating that a little bit. Not this pirate.
Yeah, right after that, Luffy puts in the box of pet food. Here's another one too, that the town is the treasure of the citizens. So now we also have characters who are maybe not even named characters or not even fighting characters directly influencing a conflict. They're just involved. But this idea that everybody has a treasure, right? My last 2 things, I have 2 quotes here from Zoro. The injury to my name is much worse than the injury to my gut. Luffy wouldn't agree. I would argue Luffy wouldn't agree because of what Shanks said. For Luffy, it would be the injury to my friends is much worse than any injury to me. So there's that. And then Nami, I'll never be a pirate. How about we team up for our common goal? Back to my theme in the first episode about partnership over anything else. She's going to do pirate things. She's going to effectively be a pirate.
Well, arguably she already has. Like, if she's stealing from the ship that Alvito was trying to steal from.
But Luffy is not going to try to convince her or tell her any of that. It's like, cool. It's about the common goal. Doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you want to call yourself not a pirate. That is you. That is fine. So, but it's interesting that now we have these 2 characters who have both stated further, not motivations, but ways of approaching and of contextualizing their own world. That is very different from Luffy's. And so even though they have similar ambitions, or they all have ambitions and treasures and stuff, they are still given this personal ideology that's different. So again, we're building complex characters that can go off and do what they want. So, and that's it. That is the end of episode 6. Any thoughts, questions?
I mean, from there we've gotten the little start of the payoff, because if you know Luffy's going to be fighting for his friends like Shanks fought for his friends, you still know Luffy's got to fight Buggy. And so when we come back next time, we're going to be discussing the all-important Goofy versus Clown, Luffy versus the Clown Prince of One Piece. Yeah, it'll be a great discussion. See what happens, see how it happens, and what kind of information we get about all of their treasures.
Perfect. All right. Cool. Well, for those of you watching on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe down below. And if you are listening to us on any of the various podcast apps, please follow us, subscribe to us, and also drop us a 5-star review if you enjoy the show. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.